Now, what happened last year was I went out to the Open. Because I was promoting the book well from a publisher's perspective, they were able to pay for me to get out to the Open, so I get paid to go to the British Open. Now, if you take the more personal side of this, actually, because I am a golf fanatic, I don't play so much now, but I was an absolute massive golf fanatic when I did the challenge. To sort of be able to shift what you're doing to being paid to go to the Open was a pretty exciting thing. And I was able to meet up with huge amounts of the people that I'd interacted with on Twitter. So you have all of these guys from all of these media companies and journalists and so on that suddenly I'm in the middle of just because of Twitter and being paid to be there. So I get out there to the Open, and I'd worked very, very hard in terms, I mean, hustle, hustle, hustle. That's a Gary Vaynerchuk term. Gary Vaynerchuk is this guy who, any of us who are kind of involved in any form of social media, we all bow down to him 3 or 4 times per day because he's so amazingly got the concept of how to build a brand, take it offline and online. So one of his concepts is that you actually have to hustle all the time, and it's quite a difficult thing to do. We talked about it earlier on, you're hustling out by putting those things out there. You kind of have to hustle in anything that you're doing. So you have to, whether you don't want to sell or any of those other things that you don't want to do, you still need to stick your neck out there and hustle whatever it is that you're trying to sell. So I got out to the Open, and the really key thing was obviously to try and get some TV coverage of my book at the Open, because in terms of the absolute best media coverage that you can get to sell your golf product of any type in the UK, it's the Open. Now, that title, Dream On, as I said earlier on, came from a line that Sam Torrance said to me. Now, Sam Torrance, very, very big UK golfer, but he commentates the whole way through all of our big golf tournaments. So Sam Torrance was there. Now, Sam Torrance is a cantankerous old get, if I can use some marketing and Northern Irish terminology. And he's a very hard man to get hold of. He also knows extraordinarily well the value of his time. And he also would be able to spot a chancer at about 2 miles, and I have chancer written all over me. So I knew that it was going to be quite hard to get through to him without do it in a sort of a soft way. But between my hustle relentlessly through with some of the producers, I eventually got hold of the Radio 5 Live producers. And then they didn't get back to me, and you can't keep your mobile at a big golf tournament like that. So you're trying to go into these, event phones, and you're sort of chucking in £1 every 20 or 30 seconds whilst they ask you to hang on the line. And you're running out. I mean, you need to have pockets like that to put all this change in to try and get hold of people. And it would be very easy just to say, forget about it, but I kept at them and kept at them and kept at them. And eventually got hold of them and they said, yes, can you be out on whatever it was? I think it was outside the 18th green. John Inverdale is going to come across and have a wee chat with you. So I said, perfect, hallelujah, you've made it. There's no chance I'm going to get the TV thing, because they just told me, they were just not taking my calls. And I mean, why would they? But they were not taking my calls. John Inverdale came across, and John Inverdale, I don't know how many of you know him in any way, but he's an absolute gentleman, loved the book, hadn't read the book, but gave me half an hour on the radio, on Radio 5 Live, on the Friday of the Open. Now, the real peak of the Open is Sunday afternoon TV coverage, where all these guys are sitting down in front of the TV, beer, thinking this is the pinnacle of their golfing year. So I get Friday afternoon, Radio 5 Live, and there'll be an awful lot of people actually, because this is the middle of the summer, there's a lot of people doing nothing, on Friday afternoon in their jobs, and if they can listen to a bit of Radio 5 Live, pretend they're going out in the car, whatever, they're listening to it. So it's still a very big audience. He was exceptionally complimentary about the book, even though he hadn't read it, and got to the end of the conversation. He said, did you ever get hold of Sam Torrance? And I said, no, trust me, I have tried. I have tried my hardest. And he said, well, you'll not get hold of him. He said, I'll get you through to him, though. So he's still broadcasting, and he meanders his way along, broadcasting and sort of stopping every so often, going through the security folk with me behind, all the way through, right up to the back of the, through all the security folk. There's huge amounts of security folk keeping you, the normal golfing peasant, away from Gary Lineker and Sam Torrance and all the rest of these guys. So he walks me on through whilst he's broadcasting, and then gets me up there. He has a little break, gets hold of Mark James, who's another famous golfer, said to him, look, this guy wrote this book, Sam Torrance, he needs to speak to Sam Torrance. Can you get that sorted out for me? He goes, yes. Speak to Mark James. Mark James is very complimentary about the process. So he gets me through, and I meet Sam Torrance there behind the whole thing. And I'm standing there for want of a better term, like a bit of a dick, because Sam Torrance has come out of the big, fancy motorhome that they've got, and he's standing above me. And he goes, yes, can I help you? And he knew I was after something. He knew it was some form of promotional thing. So I explained it to him. Cut a long story short, it didn't go well. I get the book into his hand, and I think, well, I've blown that, but, fair play. I've hustled my way through it. I've done the best that I could do. I got it into his hand. I get home and lick my wounds, but this has gone very well. Now, come back to the John Inverdale thing. I can then measure on Amazon exactly what my sales went to. My sales went to number 100 overall in Amazon. That's a huge, you're starting to sell a huge amount of books when you break into the top 100 in Amazon. So that's a lie. I did something else that got me to 100, I can't remember what it was. Inverdale got me to number 33. So you really are pumping, you're selling more than Harry Potter at that time. You're really chucking a lot of books out there. So I thought, well, that's as good as I'm going to get. And that slowly drifted off over the next couple of days. So maybe the next day you're sitting at number sort of 39, and the next day you're drifting off. But a lot of people have heard this. My phone, when I picked it up eventually in the security place, had gone berserk because they'd sort of heard all of this stuff. So many people had heard it. So I sell a lot of books, and then on Sunday afternoon, Torrance comes on. I'll not play this video because we haven't got time. This is Torrance speaking about my golf project for about 50 seconds. Very, very complimentary. He'd obviously read a bit of the book, realized that I treated him in a good light. It had all going very well. Thought it was an interesting thing. Talks about it in the Sunday. So I get to number 13 overall in Amazon. I then stayed. Hang on. Cool your jets, Johnny boy. So the result here, but not the outcome, of all of this press, coverage, Twittering and all that, was that that book got to number 13 overall in Amazon. It became the best-selling UK biography for 10 days. It was the best-selling sports book for more than a month on Amazon. That's overall sports. Best-selling golf book for the UK 2009, just by a country mile. I got a US book deal, and I've sold the film rights. So in theory, that sounds amazing. And it was great from an ego perspective. It had all worked very well. You would also assume that out of all of that I had made a stack of money. That is not the case. All of the money that I made out of all of that stuff, because actually there's very little money in books, did not equal the amount of money that I made last week by selling the online instructional courses that I sell. So 1 week, using the emails that I've generated to sell online stuff, more money than all of that other guff, that more traditional guff. So my outcome was not to get to number 1. That was a nice thing. But my outcome was to drive online sales. Now, that's not to say I made 6 or 7 million last week, but it was considerably more than I made from all of that other stuff. And that includes the advance in the US book deal, and it includes the film rights. So the outcome was very, very focused all the way along towards these online sales.